started. Thank you. They say MCP is not for the faint of heart. So I knew we would get a great crowd of people to brave the elements here in the Bay Area. So I really appreciate everybody making it out. My name is Hector Hernandez, and I'm with Speakeasy. I want to start by thanking our co-host, Inkeep. Please raise your hand. Thank you so much for having us, getting this beautiful space. I also want to thank all the speakers. We have a great lineup of both demos as well as panelists that we're very excited for you all to get to hear from. This month, November, we are celebrating not only fantastic facial hair, but we are also celebrating the 1-year anniversary of MCP. It's been 1 year, or it will be, I think, officially in like a couple of days. And it is amazing to see what these 3 little words, what this protocol has really done to the industry. It's really lit up a lot of amazing ideas. It sparked a lot of interest, and it sparked a lot of creativity. Now, things we're starting to see are actually, the rubber's starting to hit the road. We're starting to see some real use cases out there. Today, you're going to be talking to and getting to learn from companies that are at the absolute cutting edge of MCP. We have a lot to get through. We have 4 demos. We have a panelist with 4 people that are also at the absolute cutting edge of what's going on in our ecosystem right now. So we're going to go ahead and get started right immediately. So without further ado, I would like to invite Quinn from Speakeasy to kick us off. Woo!
All right. Wait, how do I do the thing?
Step 1.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, cool. Really good at this part. Yeah. Yep. All right, cool. All right, so I got a little demo for everyone. Yeah, we're going to be showing off Graham today. Start off with, this is Larry. He's very sad in this picture. He's in the back over there. He put on this whole event. Sad for a couple reasons. He hates it when I call him Larry, for one thing. His actual name is Lawrence. Larry's his least favorite thing in the world. But also he's sad because every day he has to put together 1 million demos for Graham for prospective customers, and it's a real pain. And so I thought this morning that in a very unstressful way, I could use Graham to build an agent that would make these little customer demos for him. Turns out this is actually very stressful. Took basically my whole day, and we got ready like 10 minutes ago. So if all this breaks, I'm very sorry. We're going to try. A little interlude before we get into that. Yeah, like I think I like this demo because it's all about tools. I'm more of a tools guy than an agents guy. I think at the end of the day, like it's cool when you can make the robot do stuff for you, but I think like giving the robot access to powerful things is like the really special thing. So yeah, we're gonna try and give the robot access to some interesting tools to make MCPs. Just a little diagram of our goal right now before we jump into it. Larry needs a customer demo. So he's gonna command his robot agent to build that demo. So we're gonna use Graham. Graham makes MCPs out of APIs. So we're gonna add an API to Graham. We're going to create a tool set from that API, and then we're going to make an MCP out of it. And it's all very meta. Graham is an MCP server. We're about to expose it over MCP to a robot. Yeah, we're going to see how that goes. Anyways, in order to do this, we're going to start by adding the Graham API to Graham itself. Making a risky jump into my downloads folder in a demo. That's crazy. We'll call it Graham Meta because it's a meta server of Graham in Graham. It's all. Yeah. Oops, that wasn't supposed to reopen. Okay, cool. So we've just added this API. We're going to show you in a second how that's we expose that as an MCP. In fact, let's show you right now. So I made this tool set in Graham. I pre-selected a list of tools earlier. This is the only thing I cheated on in this demo. Yeah, we get a list of tools out of it. And so now, I also wrote a little agent earlier. Oh no, this is not my agent. All right, hang on. Okay, here's my agent. So it's, yeah, just a real quick agent, like a short prompt. But the main thing we're doing here is we're connecting to that MCP server of Graham that I just made. And so yeah, we can run that agent. It is going to fail because we have not. It's missing an ingredient. So, well, whatever. We're not going to wait for it to fail. It's going to take forever. Basically, the problem is that it is not able to, like, Graham. The goal of the agent is to go find an API spec of a customer that Larry wants to send a demo to, and then download that API spec and upload it back to Graham. But it's not going to be able to download that thing without an HTTP tool, or without like the ability to do HTTP stuff. So we're going to add what's called a Graham function in order to account for the shortcoming. It actually failed for a different reason, which we'll figure out in a second. But for now, let's do this. So I've written this little function, and all it does is downloads an API spec that an agent or like a MCP caller provides, and then re-uploads it to Graham. So this is just a little shores up the missing functionality that the agent needs. So all we have to do is write that little function, and then we build it, and then we can push it. And in a second here, yeah, we have our little after hours function that shows up right here. And we also have that timestamp right there, so we're gonna reload. Cool, and there's also one tool from there that's gonna show up in our tool set. This is that Graham meta upload functions thing that I created. Yeah, a lot of stuff to go through here. Cool, we already have an environment for this. And this. Okay, cool. So now, in theory, we can tell our agent, basically the prompt for our agent right now, I don't know if I even told you guys that, but we want it to create an MCP server for the company Dub. Dub is a friend of Speakeasy, and they make link shortening stuff. So let's tell our agent to go again, and let's see if it can figure it out for us. And then the idea is that in this new project that we made for demos, we'll get a new tool set that Dub could then install and use their products through. We gotta wait like a million years for the agent to do its thing. They're not that smart yet. Hang on. It's probably gonna break. It breaks like half the time, so.
So while you're doing this, could you just explain like what's in Graham? What are you coding in Graham versus what do you code outside? How do you code Graham to do things?
Absolutely, yeah. So like Graham has like basically two means of like offering functionality in an MCP. You can implement your own API outside of Graham, and if you write an open API spec, Graham can like automatically surface that as an MCP. But like a lot of the time, you need more glue than that. So Graham also has basically a serverless runtime for like node functions, and it works like seamlessly with all of the like authentication setup that you otherwise have with Graham, and so you can write arbitrary code as well to like stitch together additional functionality, and then you can compose all of that together in the same tool set, so it's like exposed homogenously to your agent or your LLM. Yeah, that's the long-winded way. You can write arbitrary code, or you can expose an API that you've already written with this spec. Okay, cool. Wow, oh my goodness, it actually worked. This is like the fourth time in a row that it hit. Pretty cool. So this is perfect. I've successfully created an MCP server for Dub. So we can go to our new demo project, yeah, and it uploaded the Dub API spec right here, which obviously is rendering in an ugly way, but pretty cool. And then it made this little, it made a little tool set. It did not actually add the relevant tools, but we can add those tools ourselves very quickly like that. And yeah, now you can connect to this MCP, which we're not going to do in the demo, and query Dub, and then you could like send, like, I don't know, I guess Larry could send this nice little, like a little install page. They'd then be able to install this MCP and try it out themselves without even lifting a finger. So pretty neat. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Oh, wait, hold on. Happy Larry. Good job.
Thank you very much, Quinn. I got a note from Lawrence, and right after you were going through the agent building process. He said, "Great job, Quinn."
Oh.
So just that's from Lawrence. Okay. Now we have Gaurav from Inkeep who's going to be showing us how to build agents with code or without. Woo!
How's everyone tonight? Hopefully getting up here wasn't too hard. We know you had to go through turnstiles and elevators, so I'm glad you guys all could make it. As Quinn alluded to, MCPs are very powerful because they allow you to take actions and fetch data against third-party services. But to actually make use of them, you often need an MCP client, and today this is increasingly looking like AI agents. And so you can use frameworks like N8N or Mastra or LangGraph to define agents and connect them to MCPs. But the unique thing about Inkeep is that you can define your agents and your MCPs in code and sync it with our visual builder to keep on building. And you can go back and forth anytime. And so just wanted to show you today how to do that. So let's try it out. So jumping right in, this is the visual builder. As you can see, it's a multi-agent system. You have a supervisor agent, and then you have sub-agents connecting to the MCPs. And then going over here to the MCPs tab, what's cool about Inkeep is you can register your MCPs once, and then you can use them across all of your agents. And every time you load the page, it actually does a check if the servers are healthy. So as you can see, some of them are unhealthy, some of them still need logging into, but most are healthy. And so let's go ahead and just add an MCP server through code, right? Because that's the cool thing about Inkeep is you can do it through code or visually. But here in the TypeScript SDK, you can see the code representation of the agent you were just looking at. With our TypeScript SDK, you can declaratively, imperatively define your agents. And also the neat thing is that we have an MCP, our own MCP templates registry. And so if you want to add an MCP through code, all you'd have to do is do Inkeep add --MCP, and let's add a Slack MCP, right? Because Slack doesn't have an MCP, and so you can just add our MCP that we built using the Slack web client. And so here, it downloaded a bunch of code, and as we can see, it's using the Vercel MCP SDK, and we have a tool defined that is for sending a Slack message. We have a couple of input parameters, and then of course we have the logic of the MCP tool. Now, we'd actually have to register the MCP tool, so we could do that using the MCP tool primitive. And then once we register that in the project, now we can push the MCP that we defined in code to the visual builder using a simple command called Inkeep push, which is going to push the tool that we just defined into the visual builder. So now that it's been pushed, we can go back to our MCP key servers tab, and as we can see the Slack tool, which is really neat. And you can see that it has one available tool, and you can see the parameters. And so what if you don't want to define your MCP servers in code? What if you want to just use like a pre-built MCP off the shelf? So you can actually do that. So we can add like a Notion tool here, and then opt into it using OAuth 2.1. It's a really easy one-click OAuth. And as you can see, it's been added, and it has like all these cool little tools you can use. And so now we'll go back to our agent, and we'll create a quick Slack digest agent using the two MCP servers that we just created. Here we can drag and drop our MCPs, an MCP node, and we can select from any of the tools that we have defined. We can add our Notion tool, and in the visual builder, you can select which tools in the MCP server you want to use. So here we'll just select the Notion search tool, the most useful tool. We can connect it to our agent, and then we can add our Slack MCP server, and we can connect that to our agent. And the neat thing is you can also add MCP headers. I will be changing the Slack token right after this, so do not try to hack anything. and we can save our changes. And so now we can actually try out our agent in the visual builder. Let's go ahead and ask our agent this prompt. Look into my Notion pages and collect information about agents, and then send a summary via Slack. So here we could see it's going into Notion. It's giving us real-time updates. These animations are cool. It's showing us it's using the Notion MCP server. And we can see through the data operations that it's successfully used the Notion MCP, and it went ahead and sent the summary over to Slack. And so if we go to Slack, we can see, ta-da, there's our summary of agents in my Slack notes. And so, yeah, thanks. And so it's really neat because with Inkeep, you can go and debug your MCP servers super easily, clicking into it and seeing if it fails, what were the tool arguments, the error message that it throws. But yeah, that's just a couple ways to define MCPs using Inkeep, both in code and visually, and then leverage them using our agents. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. If this interests you, if you'd like to learn more, our team is hiring, and so feel free to scan the QR code and stay up to date. So yeah, we'd love to see what you build with Inkeep. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. That was an awesome demo. Really appreciate you taking the time to kind of share that with us. We're moving quite along here. We still have a couple more demos we want to get to before we go into the panel. So I want to bring up here Matt Dailey from Rep. Founder, come right up. I'll have you guys set up.
All right, there we go. Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt. I'm the developer of Ref, or you might have heard of it as Ref Tools. Super excited to be here. Thanks to the Inkeep and the Speakeasy folks for bringing us together and getting all this pizza. It's great to be here. I'm going to be talking about Ref. Ref is an MCP server for documentation search for coding agents. So if you imagine your coding agent never making mistakes working with libraries, either public libraries or private libraries. And it always has just the snippet of context it needs, so it's not blowing up your context window. It's just finding the piece you need, putting it in your context window so you can be successful. That's what Ref is built to do. My goals for tonight, I have a couple. The first one is I hope you learn a little bit about search and search evaluation, particularly in the context of agents and coding agents looking for documentation and how we evaluate search at Ref. Then I'm going to go through a demo, so I hope you learn a little bit about how you might use Ref in practice. And then I'm going to talk about some numbers from our evaluation to put it really in context. And I might close with an action for you all. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Thumbs up? Sure. Yeah, let's do it. All right, here we go. Cool, so yeah, search. The classic search problem is when you have a query and you have a bunch of documents and you want to find the documents that are relevant to your query. This is classically evaluated with two metrics, precision and recall. Recall refers to did we find all the documents that were relevant, and precision is of the documents we return, which ones are relevant and which ones are not relevant. So your perfect search, perfect precision, perfect recall means you found all the documents and you didn't return any irrelevant documents with them. That's how you'd evaluate your sort of one API call search. But at Ref, we're building a MCP server for coding agents to search for documentation. And so we want to evaluate that entire process that the agent is going through. So instead of using precision, we use token usage and recall. The reason for this is that we want to evaluate the entire search process. And agents search just like us. They search iteratively, where they'll make a query, they'll refine the query, they'll read a couple pages. Eventually, once they have what they need, they're done and they'll move on with their task. But they have this scarce resource, which is the context window. And as you're going through this iterative process, you're eating out that context window. And the context window is precious, I think, for a couple reasons. The first one is tokens cost money, inference costs money. So if you're throwing a bunch of stuff in there, you're just paying for it. And the other one is context rot. The team at ChromaDB had a good paper about this recently over the summer, where they showed even for the foundation models, as you start to add a bunch of stuff to your context window, the quality of output starts to drop. And when you're thinking about sort of long-running tasks using libraries, if you're bringing in a bunch of extra stuff every time you check a different library, the quality of output's going to drop. And I think this is like, as engineers using Cloud Code or something, you can relate to this. When you're in like a long thread with Claude and you're like, eventually you get to a point where you're just like, I gotta throw it away and start again. Context rot contributes to that. So the goal of ref is we want to find the piece of information your agent needs to be successful, and not extra stuff. Let's do the demo. So ref, has a web app where you can like create your team, add your resources, but the main way you're going to use it is in your coding agent as an MCP server. So here I am in Cloud Code. Ref provides two tools over MCP, search documentation and read URL. Search documentation will return a URL with a short description of the content of that URL, and read URL will read the content of that URL in the context, either from ref's index of web and GitHub docs, or it will scrape on the fly. And so the way you'll actually use it in practice, there's really two ways it comes up and the tool will use. Either the agent will have a linting error or just notice it's working with a library and go read the docs to fix that error. And that kind of will happen, that'll happen in the background magically, and you might not even notice. It worked in a place where you had more autonomy because of this. The other way that you'll use ref is the more hands-on approach, where you're giving your agent a task and you know this task is going to use a library. I want to guide the agent to check the docs so that it doesn't make mistakes. For example, if it's a library that changes often and you want to be up to date with the docs versus whenever the pre-training data ended. So ref provides two built-in prompts over MCP to help guide the model. It provides the my docs prompt to search your own private index of your own documentation, or the search docs to search the web and GitHub index. So I'm going to give it a task here. Write a script, a Python script, to list and drop namespaces in Turbo Buffer. Cool. So we'll give Claude this task. This is like a pretty small self-contained task, but you can imagine this being one step in a larger thing you were asking Claude to do. So it's going to go ahead here and start searching. And it's doing this iterative process where we're doing a couple searches, a couple reads, and I will, let's see. So I think it probably has what it needs. It's done one read, two reads here. Let's see, one thing it didn't show up in this demo, but one thing that ref does is, you'll notice that it did the task. There we go. That we didn't provide a number of results parameter because ref will choose the number of results to return based on the query. So if it's a very specific query, it will return less results. If it's a very broad query, it will return more. So we take that concern away from the agent and give it to the search server. Another thing I'll point out is these code tabs. So this isn't actually part of Turbo Buffer's documentation. This is something ref's crawler has added in the process, where it actually knows how to read code tabs. It won't just give you the curl when you scrape a page. It will read all of them and create a separate document for each. So you can see there's the Python one and the code one, or the Go one. And yeah, it's gone ahead and read the Python one. So let's look at the read URL results here. We've got 22 lines. I'm gonna open this up. So this is the result of reading that page. It's the markdown of the documentation. You can see it's pretty much exactly what we want. It's the parameters to this API and the code snippet, and not really anything else. It's gone ahead and cleaned up that page and given us just the piece we need, and we can move forward and feel pretty confident that Claude is going to be successful in this task. So let's go back to the eval. So I said we evaluate in terms of recall and token usage. For the token usage eval, the way that works is we set a baseline of 10,000 tokens. The reason we set a baseline is to have a normalized score out of 100%. Say how many tokens are we saving? The reason we choose 10,000 is there's another very popular server in the space called Context 7. The way it works is it will basically dump a bunch of stuff in the context window, and it uses about 10,000 tokens each time. And so this is a very popular server. The goal is to see how much better than this popular server can we do. And it turns out pretty significantly better. On average, ref saves 50 to 70%, and in the best cases, 95%. So that's like getting the 500 tokens you need instead of dumping in 10,000 tokens. And that's really what makes ref special, is how precise it can be in the search. And that's why I'm building it, that's why I enjoy working on it. That's why thousands of developers are adopting it every week so that their coding agents make fewer mistakes. And yeah, this QR code, thank you. But I will say, this QR code, I'm a solo developer just building this thing. I know I said we a lot in that talk, but it's me and Claude. This has my socials. So any amount of engagement helps me just get the word out. That's why I'm here, just spread the word. There's also, if you're interested in how this is accomplished and more of the details, or just trying it, you can sign up here or read the blog or the docs. Yes, please check it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's amazing, in less than a year, now we're seeing whole companies or products or teams building on top of MCP. A couple of things that I forgot to mention as we're getting started, very important. Number one, restrooms. A couple people have asked, just down the hall. So if you need to go, they're just literally down the hall on your left. Number two is, after the panel, so we have another demo, then we have a panel. After the panel, most of the speakers will still be around. If you have any questions, that's the perfect time to go up and chat with everybody and get some one-on-one time. With that, I would love to invite Melissa, Senior Dev Advocate at Temporal, to present. Thank you so much. Here you go.
Hello everybody, how we doing? I'm the last demo, so keep your eyes open still. I'm so sorry, we'll get through it. Alright, now it's asking me how to sync. Cool, let me make sure. Okay. Alright, hello everybody. I'm here today to preach durable MCP servers with Temporal. Now, raise your hand if you've heard of Temporal. Okay, not too bad. Raise your hand if you've heard of the term durable execution. Okay, about the same. So for those who raised your hand, I'd love to see them. For those who didn't, after this talk, you would have learned about durable execution. You would have learned about how Temporal achieves durable execution. So I have a couple slides here before we actually jump into the demo. I'm Melissa. I'm a dev advocate at Temporal, as Hector just mentioned. So my job is really to get people who are building on Temporal all the content, all the support that they need, and those who aren't building on Temporal to learn about it, and kind of preach durable execution in different areas of development. I'm also a dog mom and a matcha latte lover, so if you have recommendations, let me know. And I also say that as a shameless plug because I just started a series on my LinkedIn called Melissa's Cafe where I talk about durable execution. So shameless plug there, check it out. All right, durable execution. So we define it here at Temporal as making sure your code executes all the way to completion, even in the face of failure. So what does that mean? When we're building our workflows, we call them workflows here at Temporal as well. There are multiple steps that you must take within your workflow that you're implementing, different actions that you want to take, different services that you're connecting with. All of those points could lead to a point of failure. And so as developers, we implement some safeguards to make sure that those things don't happen, that maybe some retries occur to make sure that they do happen in the best way. But sometimes that's not all that durable. And so when you implement something in Temporal, we ensure that that is taken care for you. Make sure that tool performs the way it needs to, or it gets to the goal that it needs to. And so each point of that API call or each step that it's taking could be a point of failure. And so out of the box, most MCP servers are not durable. So let's watch one fail. Let's see what I actually mean by that. So let me hop over. I have plot on the left. I can actually make this bigger. Cool. And then on the right, that's kind of small. Okay, that's a little better. But really all this code is, as you can see, it's called weather non-durable. It's the weather MCP quick start guide straight from the MCP quick start guide, as I said. And this basically calls an API weather service so that it can get the forecast for a specific area. So if I were to ask Claude as my MCP client, get me the forecast for San Francisco, California. So first thing it'll do, it will call the API to get a general sense of that region based off the API's return, and then return the forecast. So it's doing 2 API calls under the hood. You might notice here it also has a get alerts, but right now we're just going to focus on get forecast. So let's try it out here. What is the forecast for SF California? And I already have this configured to my Claude client here. So, oh, actually it's using a different one. 1 second. So let me switch it to non-durable, and then I'm going to restart my Claude. And then we're going to go back in. Live demo gods. All right, so what is the forecast here in SF California? Now it should use the non-durable MCP server. As you can see here, so weather non-durable. And then we're gonna allow it. So we should expect for this to go ahead and call the API service, give us back the forecast, and so it does, right? Here are the logs on the right side, so we see what it's returned from the API call. Great. So what happens if that API call were to fail? So right now I'm going to simulate a failure by enabling a firewall here. So I have a set of rules that are just blocking the IP addresses that are related to the API. And then I'm going to do this again. This time I'll just say what is the forecast in Hayward, California. That's where I live. And so it should call the tool again, but watch what happens when it's trying to execute the tool. So it's going to keep trying. Let's look at the logs. On the bottom here, it's processing that request, but not as fast as it did earlier because it can't connect to the service, right? So what the client would do is actually, we don't really know what it's going to do. It might try to retry the tool. It might just fail out. It might just hallucinate an answer for us about what the forecast is. So right now it's just thinking, like, what am I going to do? And so this is a pure example of a non-durable tool. Once one API call within your MCP tool fails, the whole tool fails. And so here it says, I'm having trouble, but you just asked me about SF. It should be the same. It's not the same. So, you know, it's not always the correct, it's hallucinating basically. And this is a non-deterministic behavior. So let me show you a different version of the same exact MCP server, but this is implemented now in Temporal. So I'm actually gonna open this. Okay, and real quick, on the right side we have the temporalized version, and you can already see the similarities between the two. So on the left side we have the non-durable version. We see it's initializing the fast MCP server, same way here. We see it's instantiating the API call, and then as we scroll down with the MCP tool decorator, we're also declaring this get forecast tool. But notice here it's doing something a little different. It's kicking off what we call a temporal workflow. So what is happening inside that workflow, and here's where you might start to see the similarities, is this is the workflow that we're implementing, the same workflow that we implemented on the left side, where it's making the first API call to actually get the region, and the second API call to get the forecast. But also you might notice another thing, it's wrapped in something we call an activity. Now activities are anything that connect to any external service, and these things are prone to failure, so these make the Temporal makes it retriable. So when you're able to retry until it reaches the point of completion without duplicating any work, without crashing, so that your users don't face any error. But the whole point is that your workflow will continue executing to completion and it won't crash. So what does that now look like if I try to run it with a durable version? So I'm going to switch here. I'm gonna turn off the non-durable version and I'm gonna kill my cloud. Let's go back. Okay, what is the forecast in SF California? All right, so now it's using weather, this is the durable version. We're gonna allow it, and we still have the firewall enabled. So what Temporal also provides is this UI. So I can see all of the workflows that I've ran, and here is the MCP server running right now. This is one of the MCP tools, the get forecast tool, and you can see where it's attempting to retry that activity, one of them being the API call. So it's gonna continue retrying this. If we go back into the actual client itself, it's also still thinking, but we have the visibility to see what's going on, what's failing. In this case, we see here, it's this activity that's failing. And then I can actually go back into my code. So if I'm a developer and I catch this, I say, oh yeah, like maybe there's a bug in the code, or the network goes down and then now it's back up. So I'm gonna simulate the network coming back up. Oh, I wasn't fast enough. Let's try it again. So it actually completed as what was set before. So you could set some parameters to make sure that it does complete. And then that is up to your discretion as the developer, but let's try one more time with a different city. And I'm gonna hop back here. Oh, let's allow it. Okay. All right, so I've now disabled oh, it's so fast, it always enables. So essentially what happens is that I'm gonna go back into a password flow. So as you can see here, it's done, it's green when it completes, right? And in between the process, if it does fail, it tries to make a few attempts. So in this case, it's making a few attempts. We have exponential backoff to make sure that it tries it again and again. It did this 5 times. And then as soon as the network was back up, it completes. So we went from having one request, it had a little bit of time for us to process the second request. Here you see that it's both green and red because at first it failed, and then we got the network back up, and then now it turned green. So that is really the whole value of Temporal, and why it's great for also your durable MCP servers. And again, what does durable MCP servers even mean, right? Why this matters is that as you are talking to your agents and you are building these MCP servers, and the higher level that your requests get, the more orchestration that needs to happen under the hood. Yes, we just did a get forecast request, so that was 2 API calls, but what happens when you do book flight? That's probably 5 to 10 API calls. So more steps to orchestrate, and meaning more of a reason to have a durable MCP server. And each of these requests that you're making, well, they're just lower level APIs, so multiple failure points. And of course, if that were to occur and one of those APIs were to fail, then your whole MCP tool were to fail, in the case of not having something like Temporal. And so overall, it just makes your complex orchestrations crash-proof. So when you're taking your MCP service into production, you can have the confidence that Temporal will make sure that it's durably executed and also reliable. And so this was just a bite size of the content that we're actually sharing next week at our hands-on workshop here in San Francisco. Actually, Brian from the Speakeasy team, there you are. He'll be speaking there next week. So he's going to share his experience with Temporal. If you scan the code, it brings you to the Eventbrite. There's actually a fee, but if you use my code, then you get in for free. So take a picture. And so last thing, I know a lot of QR codes, I'm so sorry. Join our community Slack if you have any questions. Feel free to ask me questions at the end too. And here is all the resources too for the actual demo that I did with durable MCP and a tutorial. So thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you so much, Melissa. We're also happy Temporal customers.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We're going to start setting up for the panel, so the panelists will please join us up here. Before that, actually, Nick from Inkeep wanted to say hi, say a couple words. So the panelists will go ahead and get set up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Happy to host this. These presentations have been great. I have 2 quick announcements. Well, first, thank you for coming. And then 2, we are very much hiring for TypeScript engineers. So if you like TypeScript, open source, and agents, please talk to me. Or go to inkeep.com and check out our careers page. We have a ton of great folks who have worked in open source with like over 100,000 GitHub stars combined, and also folks from like MIT who study like aerospace. So a wide array of folks. But yeah, so talk to me if that profile fits you. And then two, we have these sick t-shirts that have me and my agents. So if you think they're cute, take one. And yeah, we have some swag with it. But yeah, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
All right. I was going to say, if people that just got in here, there are some seats still left back here in the corners if you want to come in. Get a little closer to the panel. Here we go. Sagar from Speakeasy.
Thanks, Hector. Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming tonight. My name is Sagar. I'm one of the co-founders of Speakeasy. Huge thanks to Inkeep and everyone else for helping us get everyone here together tonight. A quick intro about us. Speakeasy, we're a company that builds an API toolchain, helps you build out your SDKs, Terraform providers, everything you need. We recently launched a new platform called Gram. It is an agent tool platform. Essentially, you can really easily create, curate, and host your agentic tools as MCP endpoints. We started with APIs, that's what we know very well, and we recently launched a TypeScript framework to build out functions which can be deployed as tools in your MCP servers as well. So go check it out, super easy to get started. I'm going to hand it over to Robin.
Hey everyone, I'm Robin, one of the founders of Nango. Thanks a lot to Speakeasy and Inkeep for having us. Nango is a developer infrastructure for product integrations. So if you're building an AI agent, you want to let that AI agent interact with tools on behalf of your customers. We support that with more than 500 different APIs, MCP amongst those.
Hey everyone, my name is Sterling. I'm a senior developer advocate at Postman, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. If you're not familiar with Postman, we're pretty much the API client that 9 out of 10 developers uses in the world. So if you're testing, documenting, or you're even just building APIs, this is our platform. And we are huge proponents of MCP, so we have our MCP client where you can test MCPs and share those with your team.
And I'm Gaurav. I told you all about Inkeep in my demo. But yeah, I'm a developer relations engineer here, and Inkeep, in case you missed it, is an agent framework where you can build agents with no code or with code and go back and forth. We also provide a managed RAG service, which will ingest your knowledge base, so your agent is very knowledgeable off the bat. But yeah, excited to be here, and I wanted to say thank you to Speakeasy, thank you to Hector for planning this event, because it's great. Amazing. To get started, I want to recognize, as Hector said, it's been about a year since MCP came out, 1 year birthday. Stitch and a few other companies are celebrating it next week in another event. But as that's happened, I've been reflecting a lot on the adoption of MCP. It came out last year. Some people are talking about it. Then I think in February, March of this year, it really took off online. There was a real, big blast on X and LinkedIn and all the different channels. Reddit was blowing up about it. It was like MCP every day, all day long. And in the months since then, what's been really exciting to see is that there are big enterprises out there where there is MCP adoption. There are lots of MCP servers being built and deployed at many different companies. So to kick us off, I think I would love to hear from, maybe I'll start with Robin, who I know has been working with several companies on this. What are the real challenges you're seeing around operationalizing MCP in enterprise, and is it working? Is it not working? Where do you see it's going? Where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, I think our perspective on this is interesting because I think we're mostly working with companies that are building AI agents, so that's their main product, right? So for them, reliability, fast execution is really, really important. And I think when MCP launched and that whole hype came out, we expected everybody to jump on that and convert all their custom tool calls to an MCP tool call. And I think we've seen a lot of adoption sort of within the developer lifecycle. If you're using Cloud Code, you kind of need an extension like MCP, and it works really great. But the teams that are building agents that run the agentic loop as sort of their main product, we've seen very few of them actually switch to MCP. And when we ask them about this, they're basically saying look, it's about reliability, it's about tool selection, it's so easy to overwhelm the agent with too many tools, with bad descriptions, bad outputs, that kind of they want to have more control over this than the MCP gives them.
Is there a critical piece of infrastructure missing to make this happen?
I think if MCPs can solve the problem of giving the right tool to the agent at the right time, managing the context much better, then I think that would improve things a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've actually been experimenting internally with something called dynamic toolsets and dynamic MCP to basically try out different approaches of ensuring whatever client, whether it's an LM or agent, actually gets access to just the tools it needs. I'm pretty excited. We're releasing kind of a post around this in the next few days, sharing some actual data. And I think you've seen online people been talking about things like progressive disclosure, code mode. So I believe many different approaches starting to evolve that will make this much more reliable. I'm going to hand it over to Sterling. I think given the expansive adoption of Postman in enterprise, I'm curious what you've seen.
I posted about this a week ago or so, but all of your APIs suck. And I'm not even joking. I think this is one of the biggest things that I'm starting to find with enterprises is MCP really opened up and showed the vulnerability of our APIs. All of our internal APIs, not your externally facing, this is an iceberg, right? Anything that you're externally facing is probably about 2-3% of your API, of your all of your services internally. Everything else is internal APIs, internal services. And when MCP came out, a lot of enterprises discovered that their APIs, their internal services, all suck. I talked to one enterprise last week, and she's at a healthcare, I won't say which one, but their internal APIs will take sometimes minutes to resolve. And MCP, it's traditional HTTP, is 60 seconds. So we're really struggling at the enterprise level of how do we convert our old legacy APIs, our old legacy services to more agentic-ready, AI-ready APIs. And that's where I think my hot take is all of our APIs suck. I mean, and Postman is, I know we're recording this, so don't share this publicly. But I mean, even at Postman, we have, I think, 300 APIs. And so as we started to build our own MCP server that was going to be exposed to customers, we realized that even some of our APIs were not really great. The other thing I would actually say is one of the things you asked is where's the limitations of MCP and where is it fragile? Right now, I think the other part of it is, and I'm happy to talk about this later, is if you've heard of Claude Skills, that was released early in October. I think that's not a replacement for MCP. I think it's MCP plus Skills. And I think Skills is where we can really define what the workflow should be. The problem with MCP is we're giving a generic AI access to a bunch of tools without having the specificity of what is it supposed to do. And so that deterministic aspect is what, as developers, when we see enterprises aren't adopting it, is we want our agents to be more deterministic. So I think Skills is the next foray. I think it's going to be what happens into 2026. I hope it's got a better adoption of it, or faster adoption of OpenAI and Gemini. I've been talking with the Gemini team about it, so yeah.
Keeping on the theme of enterprise, I think another really big one that I've been hearing is a lot of big companies are thinking about as the teams adopt MCP and not just build their own, but bring in external servers, how do you verify a server? How do you decide which ones should be allowed to be used, which ones are ready, which ones are not? So there's essentially a whole kind of cataloging or discovery problem. I'm sure you at Postman know that very well. That is kind of coming to the forefront in big enterprise. So I think I'm curious to hear from some of the panelists, and I'm going to start with Gaurav because I noticed this very pretty MCP, can I call it a catalog, in your product, and clearly you've given some thought to which servers should be allowed and which should not be.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like a MCP registry, there are just so many out there, as you know. And I think it's kind of funny because I think it was Mastra who created like a registry of MCP registries. And like going back to your first question, Sagar, is like one of I think the difficulties of operationalizing MCPs is first like consolidating them into like a single source of truth that like people can rely on. But yeah, we're still figuring it out. We're looking into Composio and other services because we want to use like MCPs like Google Calendar and Gmail and expose it to our client, our users. But it's just like you were saying, Sterling, lots of APIs suck, and so you can't just turn an API into an MCP. And so I think that's why companies are so slow to create their own native MCPs. And so yeah, you're right. There's just like so much confusion. Like if I want to create like a Gmail MCP, I could go to Zapier. They have one. I could go to Composio. And the question is like, which one's better? Which one should I trust? And so I think as we kind of like move forward over this next year, I think we're going to start to see a lot more centralization. Kind of like a ShadCN for MCPs. Like I think there's going to be someone out there who does it, who like creates just like a ton of amazing MCP servers, so nobody has to kind of duplicate the same work over and over again. So that's my hope as someone who consumes MCPs. But yeah, the future's uncertain, so we'll see how it shakes out.
Do you mind if I take a second?
Please go.
So this is a huge problem. Like being able to understand and know which APIs, which MCP servers are valid is huge. And that is a glaring problem in this space. Postman we have the largest API network with over 100,000 publicly available APIs. If you're not familiar with that sounded really marketing. I'm really sorry. I'm not here to sell Postman. I'm talking about MCP. But we have that same struggle. And right now, what we're doing at Postman is we're white gloving, talking to like these verified partners. It's like, okay, we're talking to Google, and we're handpicking them, and we're white gloving it. But this is not sustainable. And so, like, I'm not saying that our way is the right way, but there's got to be a better way. So I'm hoping that leads us into 2026.
Yeah, super interesting. I think two things that have occurred to me and the team recently is that kind of on that point you said, Gaurav, of registry of registries, or how does a company even make their own registry? I think probably should talk to the official MCP team, but when you look at the registry implementation, it's really built as a registry that's meant to be upstream of other ones. And so I think my suspicion and kind of a hypothesis here is that we'll get to a place where companies are actually running their own, much in the same way you think about Docker or NPM. There's like an official registry, but you can run private registries where you manage and essentially verify packages for your team to be able to use. And this is, of course, kind of a bigger company problem, but essentially is one of the key pieces I think you need to build the trust for really big companies to actually adopt this. I want to do a quick round robin. We'll start with Robin. I want everyone here to share kind of, we've just talked about two different places where MCP might be struggling. So want everyone to share a real use case you've seen that you think is actually cool, valuable, and more than just a demo.
Yeah, I think there's one that's glaringly obvious to us. That's like kind of installing our docs as an MCP server for developers that want to use our product. What Ref just showed. I think that's like clearly a use case where it excels. And so like as an extension library in a way for your Cloud Code, any like sort of human in the loop workflow, that's where we've seen a lot of adoption on our side.
Well, you took mine. I was going to talk about docs and get another reference to ref. I think the internal, just being able to ingest all of that tribal knowledge that's inside of our heads and being able to get that out. So the other part of that is internal documentation, not just our API documentation, but how, like the best MCP servers that we have internally at Postman are ones where we have, like, our marketing team are grabbing all of their docs and we're dropping it in, we're cleaning it up, turning it into structured data, and then we're putting it into a RAGS database. And then anytime someone says, hey, what's going on over here, we're not trying to fumble over who said this in Slack, what Google Doc is this, what Confluence Doc is this. So that internal APIs or internal docs is our biggest use case, and the one that I think is glaringly easy, but not, like, it seems simple at face value, but it's really hard to accomplish.
Yeah, I would say like a real world use case would be, like what Robin was saying, we have our own MCP servers for our own docs. So you can like vibe code agents using our MCP. It'll basically, it'll look through the SDK and it can like define agents and MCPs for you. But I think one cool MCP that we offer at Inkeep is one for your knowledge base. So like we'll ingest your knowledge base and then expose it as an MCP. And so I think that's like probably the most helpful. Like we have customers like Anthropic and Pinecone using that. And I also think the one I personally like to use MCPs for is web crawling agents, like using like Exas and Firecrawl's MCP. You can do like a ton of things with that. Like you can do like deep research. You can do, like, I personally have like a DevRel agent which will like basically scrape like the Luma page every day and like send me an email if it finds like a new event notifying me of it. So I would say like web crawling is definitely one of my favorites.
There was definitely a theme around docs and knowledge sharing there, so I'm going to try to go another way and not say that one again. One that I'm quite excited about is product onboarding. So we've seen a couple of folks in the last just really a few weeks come in, set up MCP servers that either wrap their APIs or kind of internal tools, and they're essentially rebuilding the first touch of the product experience. So you log in, you put in your name and your company, and instead of having to do a bunch of click ops to configure the product, you actually describe what you need to do. So without saying too much, one of these companies that's about to launch this, the product in the billing space, and a user comes in and basically describes the kind of 3 tiers of 4 tiers of their billing plan that they have, and it auto-configures the billing product for you, which was really exciting to see because I think something like billing a complicated, deep domain space, a lot of people trip up over actually mapping their billing concepts to a product. It's just a very tough thing to do. And so given all of those capabilities are available as APIs, they've turned it into a very kind of well-scoped MCP server, and that actually sets up the product for you. And hopefully also lets you iterate on your billing plans as you go forward. So I'm really excited to see kind of more of, let's call it product onboarding experiences get built on MCP. Kind of staying on that theme, I want to talk a little bit about use cases and business value around MCP, and let's call it tool calling more generally. For teams exploring tool calling, I'm curious where you're seeing kind of highest ROI investments. Which teams? Is it engineering? Is it product? Is it customer support? I'll start with Robin again because I think Nango has this perspective where they work with lots of different companies on this.
Yeah, I think it's really across the board. So we have companies from like 9 different verticals using us for tool calling in their agents. So from like engineering to product to sales to marketing to HR to compliance. Because I think in the end it's like, AI is about automation, and that's really what agents enable you, is to do stuff for you that you did manually before. and that just exists in every workflow across every business, in every function.
Yeah. I mean, at Postman, it's like the mandate came from our CEO said, we're all in on MCP, so you guys better get the hell, like get with it and like start building your MCP servers internally. So we're seeing wide adoption on the enterprise across the board, but I think I'm gonna caveat this a little bit, where I don't think we can say it's just engineers and it's just one department. I think it's when a whole department is bought in on an idea of MCP and how powerful it is, you actually get the full power of that. Like you get that full adoption, because right now, you get a couple people on one team and a couple people on another silo, and they're adopting it. But until you get widespread adoption or wide buy-in from a whole part of an organization, that's where we start to see the real power of MCP. So, enterprises are wildly different. I mean, I won't say any names by name because they're really big companies, but I had one where I was on a customer call, and quite literally the entire sales org, no one else, engineers weren't even touching MCP, which was wild to me. Like, you'd think engineers would do it, and their whole sales team, their whole sales org had adopted MCP. They built in with Salesforce and all that, and what they had automated with their agents was so cool, and it made their engineers look like crap.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I think MCPs, like, kind of bouncing off that point, are still kind of making its way like outside of San Francisco. Like, I'll ask my friends like who are like on the East Coast, like, what's MCP, and they have like no idea what that is. Like, so we definitely need to do a better job of like evangelizing it. But I think back to your question, Sagar, on like like who does it help the most? Where do you find the most ROI? I actually ask this question quite a lot, like when I go to conferences and events, and I think lead enrichment is like a pretty good use case. It's kind of more workflowy, where like you have like a contact, it'll look up their LinkedIn and then fill in a bunch of information. And so I see that use case a lot. Coming from Inkeep, where we really cut our teeth in customer experience, like I'm biased to say that, like, just as a customer, not only being able to kind of like ask any question about like a company, but also escalate to customer support, like have your agent create like a Zendesk ticket, or look up real-time information like your billing status. It's just like invaluable, and with customer support, really like the sky's the limit. But yeah, I mean, you can use it for all sorts of things. Like, I know there's content marketing. Like, probably like the most popular demo I see out there is like a PR is created and then like a blog post comes out, or like a changelog tweet. Like, I'm sure you all have seen that. But yeah, I mean, kind of going back to what Robin was saying, like, the values across the board, it's just really down to our creativity to think of ways to kind of keep on pushing what we can do with it.
To kind of close this out, I wanted to ask, it's been 1 year of MCP. If we meet again in another year and look back, do you have kind of bold predictions for where the space is going to go? To make it a little spicy, I'll ask, is there one person, company, product, space, anything that's going to be a winner, and one person that's going to be a loser? So bold prediction. I know, like, I don't know how much of you know, but like, there's this whole Twitter debate about like, does MCP suck? Doesn't it? And like, I personally, like, I'm a fan of MCP. Like, I don't think it's going anywhere. That doesn't mean that it couldn't have come out better. Like, there could have been better ways to roll it out. But in terms of the next year, like, I don't think it's going anywhere. And in terms of who are the winners, who are the losers, like, I think ChatGPT's App Store is really cool. Like, they announced that in Dev Week, and it's just so cool to see. Like, it could potentially replace the browser and Google search entirely. Like, you can do everything from ChatGPT. You could order DoorDash, you can order like professionals on Thumbtack, and so
that's really exciting to see like what that'll develop into. I think they're a little slow on like rolling out all the apps you can use, but I think once they start like rolling out like a lot of apps, like we can see like a lot of usage out of that.
Losers, Google. I think traditional search is dead, and I think with MCP we're seeing big companies, like new companies come out. I recently found out about Parallel AI. If you haven't seen their stuff, I've used Perplexity since day one. I think to go off what Gaurav was saying is, if I'm looking back and coming back next year, my bold prediction is skills and MCP are going to be like part and parcel. Like you're not gonna see an enterprise who doesn't have a skill that's out there. And MCP is still it's skills plus MCP, not skills versus MCP. And the big winners, I think, are just going to be Anthropic and OpenAI. I think I love Gemini, and their stuff is fantastic. But Google as a whole, I think their traditional search is in trouble.
Yeah, I have a similar view to you, Sterling. I mean, less on the Anthropic and Google thing, but I think MCP is an idea of like tool calling and being able to take action in other parts, other systems. I think that's gonna like massively grow. I think I do hope for the whole ecosystem that something like skills or like more reliable tool calling emerges. I'm not sure that's gonna run on the MCP protocol the way that we know it today. Like it's still kind of wild to me that to do something as simple as a tool call, we have this whole like server running that's like its own process. I think like there's probably way more efficient ways to do that, and hopefully sort of MCP 2.0 or whatever it's going to be, it's going to go more in that direction. But I think agents are going to continue to become more powerful, more useful, and that's going to mean much more interaction with third-party APIs in better ways.
I think one bold prediction is I think that the kind of analytical database products like Snowflake, BigQuery, all of those, I think those will actually be winners because I can't imagine that a year from now MCP won't be supporting more async operations, more stateful operations. And I think all of us have tons of data in our companies. We want to access it, query it. No one wants to make dashboards and reports manually. Like it just feels like such an obvious use case for MCP, and so MCP, the protocol, the spec has to evolve really to support this in a first-class way, but I believe it will. So I think those companies that store data and provide query and lookup will just get even more usage as it gets unlocked for more users. And then I think just to end on, I'll skip the loser for me, but just to end on a high note, I think regardless of what happens with MCP, at the end of the day, it's a protocol, and with all of the noise happening online, it's very possible we see another one come out. But tool calling is really here to stay, and I think that we're going to keep building agents, whether it's on Inkeep or some other platform. Like people are still going to be doing that. You're still going to be using your coding agents. You're going to be looking up your docs on Ref or another platform. And so there will be tons of tool calling that happens. That's going to continue to grow. So that's what I'm really excited about. And on that, I just want to thank all of our panelists, Gaurav, Sterling, and Robin for coming here today, joining us. Thanks so much, guys. And to everyone here, thank you for coming. Please eat more pizza, talk, hang out, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you so much. Actually, I think you should only use Ref and Inkeep, but that's just my personal opinion. Thank you so much. This is actually our 5th MCP After Hours. If I can get this on here. And so I was thinking about how to close this because it's also our last event of the year. November, it's crazy, the year's already coming to an end. And so I was reminded by some final thoughts that I read earlier in the week. And I thought, I should probably just borrow them. They have nothing to do with MCP. I want to clear that out. They don't even really have anything to do with technology. But at the end of the day, one thing that we all have in common here is that we are all building companies. And one of the greatest company builders that we've ever had is retiring next month. His name is Warren Buffett. I'm sure everyone here knows him really well. Warren Buffett, amongst many, many things, is really famous for the letters that he writes to his investors, especially the letter that he writes to investors right before Thanksgiving. So I want to try something very, very different. And I was just going to read the final thoughts from Warren Buffett's final letter to investors as CEO of his company. If that's okay with everyone, we'll just end. No MCP, no technology, but just a couple thoughts from one of the best to have ever done it. A few final thoughts. One perhaps self-serving observation. I'm happy to say I feel better about the second half of my life than the first. My advice, don't beat yourself up over past mistakes. Learn at least a little from them and move on. It's never too late to improve. Get the right heroes and copy them. Remember Alfred Nobel, later of Nobel Prize fame, who reportedly read his own obituary and that was mistakenly printed when his brother died, and a newspaper got mixed up. He was horrified at what he read and realized he should change his behavior. Don't count on a newsroom mix-up. Decide what you would like your obituary to say and live the life to deserve it. Greatness does not come through accumulating great amounts of money, great amounts of publicity, or great power in government. When you help someone in any of thousands of ways, you help the world. Kindness is costless, but also priceless. Whether you are religious or not, it's hard to beat the golden rule as a guide to behavior. I write this as one who has been thoughtless countless times and made many mistakes, but also became very lucky in learning from some wonderful friends how to behave better. Still a long way from perfect, however. Keep in mind that the cleaning lady is as much a human being as the chairman. I wish all who read this a very happy Thanksgiving. Yes, even the jerks. It's never too late to change. Remember to thank America for maximizing your opportunities, but it is inevitably capricious and sometimes venal in distributing its rewards. With that, thank you so much for joining us. May you all have a lot of rewards to end the year. We'll be back February. Thank you.